This could be Harry Kane's last game for Spurs in that clash against Leicester. Of course, it has been the big story that has dominated the headlines over the last few days after it broke that he was going to hand in a transfer request. In that interview that he's given, more of it was exposed today, talking, just kind of flirting with City, completely going, I watched the balls that Kevin De Bruyne could deliver me, and I would love to be in that situation. Ian, what have you made of the way this has played out, and how do you see it ending?
Well, it's pretty clear Harry Kane wants to go, so I don't think Daniel Levy, for all that he plays hardball on every transfer, I'm not sure that they can really hold on to him. What they'll want to get now is to get the correct fee for him. And I would say probably in this COVID climate that we're in, anything over £100 million would probably get it done, because they don't want to keep an unhappy player. And you know what? Nobody at Tottenham Hotspur, none of the fans should have any bad feelings about Harry Kane. He's given the best years of his career to that club. He's entitled now to make a move and go somewhere where he has much more potential of winning trophies. And he's looked around and he said Manchester City. So it's almost come and get me, isn't it? This is getting leaked out. He's talking about De Bruyne. So it's a question of whether City want to go for him. It's hard to imagine that they wouldn't if they can afford it. And it's hard to imagine that they can't afford it, bearing in mind who owns the club.
What are you hearing, Jan?
I'm just hearing that these players, what we're talking about, when they take the next step, and we'll probably talk about Sancho and Haaland next season maybe, you'll always see where you are at your career. And that is something, it's nothing against Manchester United. But if Harry Kane looks around, and I think Manchester United done well this season, they're second in league, but there's nothing to show me that they will win the Premier League next season. There's nothing to show me that they will win the Champions League next season. And Harry Kane, at this stage of his career, he wants to win titles. That's why he wants to leave Tottenham, because he knows he can't win any big titles with Tottenham Hotspurs. And sometimes I feel that is a bit under-communicated when people got linked to different kind of players at the stage of their career when you know they want to win titles. And it's obvious that the most likely club to win titles, if you just see it now, I mean, I thought Liverpool would win the Premier League. It was wrong. Manchester City won it. But still, if you look at it now, when you're going to make a decision where you're going to play next season, you will either go to Manchester City or Liverpool and maybe Chelsea, because they will spend money, or they've shown last transfer window they will spend money. And that is a lot under-communicated on these players.
Put like that, Craig, it's a no-brainer, isn't it?
Yeah, and fair play to him. I mean, you know, he probably should have gone 3 years ago, but the fact that they had a decent manager at the time and a half-decent squad, they obviously got to a Champions League final. They were somewhat competitive a couple of times in the Premier League and faltered at the end. So you kind of understood 3 years ago why he maybe have hung around, because there was some potential. There's no sign of that really at Spurs. They're flapping around from one place to the next. We don't know what they're going to do. So absolutely fair play. Needs to get out now. And you know, if you had a choice, you go to the team that's ready-made. That you know what you're going to get. You know you're going to be competing in every competition. We were talking about potentially winning the quadruple a couple of months ago or whatever it was. So yeah, it's just up to the people now that can do a deal. But I think Daniel Levy, the boys have been saying, is going to have to accept that Harry Kane's going to move to another club, and he's just going to have to fight tooth and nail to get what he can get, and then everybody moves on. But he really has to make that move now, because he could easily have done it 2 or 3 years ago.
Say that move's happened, Stevie. That's kind of a big kick up the backside for Liverpool, isn't it? To sort themselves out in the summer to remain competitive with a Manchester City with Harry Kane.
Well, it's not just Liverpool, but it's everybody else, because the side who are the best side, no question, Man City have been the best side, have gotten better. So that is going to force all the other teams, particularly Liverpool, to go and spend money. The problem is, it's money that, as far as we know, they don't have. And actually, other than Haaland, who's available? So, if City...
Jadon Sancho, for example, would that be someone that...
Jadon Sancho, in my opinion, is not Harry Kane.
Well,
I think you're talking about another level. Listen, is Jadon Sancho a great player? Yes, Jadon Sancho's good. Would he make Liverpool as good? Maybe. He's not going to make them better. That means they're still behind Manchester City, though, because they've signed Harry Kane. So the rest of them are going to have to get the scouts out and try and find some players.
I tell you what, Dan. Liverpool should be careful if they're resting on the laurels with their manager, because he was a really aggravated Jurgen Klopp this season, primarily because the injuries. But the other side was that he kept being told there was no money to go out and replace those long-term injuries. Now, it's all ifs and buts, but if some of the top players go to the other big European clubs, and certainly the ones that are rivaling Liverpool domestically, that's saying to me that this manager's going to say sooner rather than later, listen, I've had enough of this. We've came in, I've given you everything you need, I've shown you what we can do, but if you're not going to back me while the Kanes of this world and all these other players go to these clubs, then what's the point in me staying here? So I think Liverpool have to be careful of their ownership, that they're, obviously there's budgets, but they have to be making sure they're dipping as deep into their pockets as they can. Otherwise, they're going to run the risk of this manager being very, very frustrated.
Yeah, I think that I don't agree with Steve. I think that Sancho will make Liverpool better, because I think they need that freshness. I think they need that kind of player to kind of liven up the other players in the team. Jurgen Klopp, as Craig's saying, will be frustrated because he wanted to have players in last summer, couldn't get them, and I think that what is more annoying for him is not that they're getting the players, but the other teams that they are supposed to compete with are getting the best players. And sometimes, we talked about that before with the boys, is that Jurgen Klopp is a victim of his own success, because he made good players into great players, and when the American owners will tell him you don't have money. So I think that could be a signal. And it's also with Sancho the same thing, that he is in another level of his career than Harry Kane. He's like 22 or something, so he doesn't have to get those titles now, so he can go to a club. So I think that he will fit even more to Manchester United, because they certainly are desperate for a player who can freshen them up and liven them up and give them some flair.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.